Moving on, topic number 5. We were talking about some NFL guys. One of the biggest stories in the NFL right now is Julio Jones. He was on, I can't remember the name of the show, with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp, where Shannon Sharp actually called up Julio and said,
Undisputed.
where do you want to go? Do you want to stay with the Falcons? And he said, no, I want to compete. I want to compete for a championship. He said it over the phone, live on the air. I still don't know if Jones knew that he was live. I think he knew, because the former NFL player talking with the current NFL player, there's sort of a kinship there. So I think he did know. But the rumors are that there's 2 places that he would go: Tennessee and New England. There's probably other teams that he would want to go to. I would imagine he wouldn't want to just narrow it down to just those 2 teams. But we are based out of Massachusetts, so we're going to talk about Julio possibly going to the Patriots. We talked about it a little bit before. We talked about Odell Beckham coming to the Patriots as well. Brandon, what do you think about, should the Patriots, not should, because I think there's an easy answer there. Well, what do you think they would have to give up, and what do you think all the different circumstances are around the Patriots going after Julio Jones?
Yeah, I mean, he was on the Undisputed on Fox Sports Network, so we'll give them a shout out. He was on the show with Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless, and he just straight out, flat out said, hey, I'm out of there. I'm out of there. When he asked him about Atlanta, he said, I'm out of there, man. And then he asked him about the Dallas Cowboys, and he said, I don't want to go there. I want to win. So it was one of those things where, he threw the Cowboys underneath the bus and the Falcons at the same time. So I'm expecting them to move him at this point. It's just what team is he going to go to? And like you said, the Patriots keep coming up, and so do the Tennessee Titans. I don't want to talk about the Tennessee Titans, so we'll talk about the Patriots getting them. Exactly. We'll just move one of those right out of the way, and we'll talk about the Patriots getting them. And rumor has it is that he wants to play with Cam Newton, and that's specifically the rumor I keep hearing, is that Julio Jones wants to come to New England to not only play for this great franchise, have a chance to win, and play for a winning organization. And I know we've had some down years, most recently last year, but we're still a winning organization. And he wants to play with Cam Newton. And honestly, I think this makes sense. If you think about it, when Cam Newton was at his best, his MVP years, playing for the Carolina Panthers, guess who they played twice a year? The Atlanta Falcons, in their same division. So he got to see the best, and I'm talking about the absolute best of Cam Newton over those years. And I'm pretty sure that he's like, this guy has still got some game left in him. And I'm not sure if this is a joke that Ben's showing on the pictures there. Cam Newton's a little bit better than that, producer Ben. And so, and Julio Jones sees it, and he believes in it right now. And so I think that's the reason why he wants to come to New England. And like I said, and to play for a thing. And if we're going to have to give up something to get Julio Jones, I'm all for it. And like I said, I was all for giving up something to get Odell Beckham Jr. too. We need a number 1 wide receiver. I know we can't have both of them, but I want one of them. And I don't care what we have to give to get them. You know what I mean? Get one of these guys right now, Julio Jones or Odell Beckham Jr. I'm perfectly fine with shopping J.C. Jackson at this point. And here's the reason why. I get it. He's a young corner. He can be a cornerstone. But I think corners are developing really fast now in college. You're starting to see a lot more of them. It's really starting to be that premier position because they know it's a passing game. So we're starting to see, even in this year's draft, you saw Patrick Surtain and a couple of other guys go in the first round. So shop this guy. If they want J.C. Jackson, if the Browns want J.C. Jackson, or if the Falcons want J.C. Jackson, then ship him out, so we can get this number 1 wide receiver. And trust me, J.C. Jackson has played great for us, but that's the thing. He's actually maxed his value out at this point. So I think if you're going to move him, this is the time to move him. Where are you going to get to move him for a guy like Julio Jones or a guy like Odell Beckham Jr.? I'd say even J.C. Jackson's like, man, that my value is maxed out. Guess what? It comes around contract time, I'm going to be asking for big money because I just got traded for Odell Beckham or Julio Jones. So it's really one of those things where I think it could help everybody, honestly. I think a trade could help everybody, including the Atlanta Falcons, because guess what? You're starting to see this a lot more in professional sports, and we've talked about this a lot more in the NFL, where guys are saying, I want out, man. I want out. I want on a new team, and Julio Jones is just the latest guy to do that.
Yeah, no question. And I think, trading J.C. Jackson, I'd be okay with it. Especially if you're keeping Stephon Gilmore. I mean, there was sort of some debate as to whether or not the Pats would hang on to Gilmore this offseason. He's got 1 year left on his deal. I'm sure he wants a new deal. He might hold out of camp because he wants a new contract. But I think at this point, seeing how they drafted, who they went after in free agency, I think they're going to keep Gilmore. They also supposedly really like Miles Bryant. He's a guy who came in at the end of last year, corner, very similar story. He was either a late round draft pick or even a rookie free agent last year, and played a little bit of corner this year for the Pats. And supposedly, according to guys like Greg Bedard and Tom Curran and guys like that who are always around the Patriots beat, the Patriots really like him. So maybe he's the next J.C. Jackson if they get rid of or trade J.C. Jackson. So that's a good point there. Is I think they can spare to trade J.C. Jackson if you're keeping Stephon Gilmore. The Cam Newton thing, I totally understand why he wants to play with Cam Newton. Cam is a very charismatic guy, really good leader, has worked hard. He proved it last year that he is a guy that's good in the locker room. Guys want to be around Cam Newton. I just don't know if receivers, by week 5 or week 6, if Cam isn't better this year, if he's sort of the same Cam as last year as far as how he was throwing the ball, I don't know if Julio Jones is going to be all in with Cam Newton. So that's the thing. If I were to trade for Julio Jones, if I'm the Patriots, I'm trading for Julio Jones because I think he's going to be one of the best receivers for Mac Jones. That's what I'm trading Julio for. If I think Julio is going to work well with my rookie quarterback and along with the tight ends that they got, and if Julio, as long as Julio doesn't need 100 catches, because frankly he's probably not going to get 100 catches with the two tight ends. They throw a lot to the backs. They don't throw as much downfield as some of the other teams. Julio can line up anywhere. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. So you can get him catches different ways. As long as Julio doesn't need those numbers like some of the other players, the receivers in the NFL need, and he's okay to ride along with Mac Jones, then I would definitely trade for him. If you kind of find out he doesn't really want to work with a rookie quarterback, I don't know if I'd do it. I know that sounds crazy because Julio is so good. He's arguably one of the best, if not the best, receivers in the NFL. The catch he made in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, I think, was the greatest catch in Super Bowl history. That's just my opinion as far as degree of difficulty. But he needs to be in line with saying, I would be happy to catch footballs from Mac Jones. I think that's the biggest thing that the Patriots need to answer if they go and get him.
First off, producer Ben, quit hating on Cam Newton. You keep showing this video like Cam Newton can't throw. All right, I get it, producer Ben. But honestly, he needs some better targets. If he can't hit these targets on this roster, Ben, then I'd say you have a point. But I think we're going to see a complete change, honestly, this year, and I'm expecting a change. But here's to answer your question, and you bring up a great point. Guess what university Julio Jones came from? The University of Alabama. Guess where Mac Jones came from? The University of Alabama. These Alabama players love playing together, and I get it. Trust me, I know they didn't play together in college, but they came out of the same system. They came from the same coach, the same mentality. So I think Julio Jones is ready to play with Cam Newton, and he's ready to play with Mac Jones. So I think it's one of those things where I think if you move him, it will be well worth it. Because if he wants to play with Cam Newton, he'll be ready. But I guarantee you, Julio Jones would tell you he'd be happy to play with Mac Jones as well. And so I think he wants to come and just have a chance to win. He said that multiple times, and I believe it. And I think if we get him, we do have a great chance to win, and so does he.